What's up? Okay, so we are back on the car. What have we done? We have a new quarter panel. Now, few things to note because I don't think I did this much analysis or review of installing a quarter panel when I did the passenger side. Okay, so let's run through some of the intricacies. You see the door is off. The door was on when I aligned the quarter. Okay, so first piece of the process is you install your door. You get your door and your OEM quarter aligned, right? When those two are aligned, you align your fender. So it's door to quarter, door and quarter to fender. When all three of those are in place, you leave the door on. You take your quarter panel off, which I'll go into the detail of doing that in a moment. Then, once you take your quarter panel off, with your door still on, you put on the new quarter panel and screw it in place, or clamp it in place. Screw it, clamp it, don't care. Do one of them. Make sure you've locked in the location of the quarter, okay? And as a side thing, if you're also gonna fit up your wheel housing, your inner, outer, both, whatever, make sure that is clamped in as well. Okay, clamp, screw, everybody in. Once you know that your body lines match up everywhere, okay? So, that is the general overview of installing your quarter. Now, let's go into the details of installing, or start with removing your quarter panel. It's pretty straightforward. You remove the hundreds of spot welds that's everywhere, okay? There's gonna be spot welds all up here. This is gonna have filler on it, remove that. There's some spot welds here. This is gonna have lead. Remove the lead with a torch, wear a mask. Wear a mask, I repeat, wear a mask. This is very hazardous. It can hurt you. It's old lead. Lead today is lead-free solder. Lead-free. This is lead. Okay? Wear a mask. Moving on from that. Remove these spot welds, okay? Now, very carefully, you want to raise or pry this lip up, okay? Very carefully. You can get away with a little and fix it. I did on the other side. If you pry too much, you're gonna create a kink about here, depending on how you pry, but the kink is gonna occur here, okay? I did a good job, because you can see, no kink, but be careful, because this quarter, your OEM quarter, is sandwiched between your roof and your subframe support for the car. Okay, so you're gonna have to pry this up a little. Moving on from that, remove all of these spot welds and all of the spot welds here. Okay, also, you're going to have to remove spot welds in there. See where all those holes are? You're gonna have to remove spot welds there, as well as spot welds over here. Everything you see as a hole was a spot weld. Next, you're going to have to remove these spot welds, which is there. And then there's going to be an annoying section with spot welds over here. Can't obviously get to this, so I would very carefully, very, very carefully cut a line, being careful not to go through both or below, because there is a bracket under here. Cut very carefully. If you got something that stops you from going any too deep, use it like a guide or something. But do not cut past, so that way you can do a different technique that I'll tell you after the spot welding removal. So then you're going to remove these. You're going to have to remove these spot welds, and of course this bottom. So I think I got about everyone. Oh yeah, there's also going to be 2 spot welds here. Can't see it, it's dark, sorry. But you're going to have to remove those. Now what I also did was I kept my OEM thing on. I also replaced my deck lid filler panel. Now, if you look at my other videos, this didn't look horrible, but the underside was horrible. And yeah, I could have gobbled it up, or no one would see it unless they went in the truck and looked upside down. But I knew it was there. So that's enough for me to want to change this out. If you are like me, I'm going to tell you how to rectify that. Okay, so once you remove this, or once I remove mine, I actually had work to do fabricating pieces and welding up areas of this section in that corner. So I did that. Also, when I changed the quarter, this little tab here was gone on the other side. I knew I had to fabricate something for it, so kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Now, if you notice here, this is pretty smooth. Well, you might not notice to me. Let me start over here. You notice here, there's spot weld holes, or holes to put my spot welds. It is on this side because I can get my grinding wheel on this flat, nice surface to easily just grind it flat, no fuss, no foul. Now, we get into here. This here is a groove, okay? Grinding wheel is going to be very difficult to get in here. So, if you notice on the actual OEM piece of metal, it's kind of not screwed in all the way. That's because I didn't get to it yet. But I have my spot welds here. That way, even though I'm welding upside down, it's a little annoying for that. But when I have to come through to clean up the welds, it'll make this side nice and finished, and this side, the side that I do all my grinding on. You know, you might have a little penetration on your weld to the other side, but if you control your heat properly, which means the settings on your welder is good, you should see some haze effect, but it should be nothing more than having to do a light scuff. Okay? Now, that is removing. What is underneath the quarter? Who can say? You could have a rusted frame, you could have rusted wheel housing, you could have work to do wherever. That's the point of restoration. You dig through the layers and then afterwards you come back up. Okay? So that's that. Now, why did I change this quarter? I changed the quarter because it wasn't matching the profile of my aftermarket kit. Now, I know a lot of you is going to scream at me. It's an aftermarket kit. What the hell is wrong with you? This other side matches well, and I did chop here and put an aftermarket section piece in, which did not match the contours of that. So this other side, the passenger side, matched well. The driver side didn't. But the driver side of this piece matches that piece. So, not to mention, I also found crap that was wrong underneath the quarter, of course, which led me to change out the outer wheel housing. So, I can't tell you how to build your car, but I can tell you that if you don't want surprises, either from a customer because he got rust that comes through your fancy paint job that you charged a whole bunch of money for, or, you know, it just did whatever, starts bubbling, you want to do your due diligence. Now, I've made videos before about this. The only way that you're going to absolutely know that there is no rust in your underlaying areas is to get the car acid dipped. That is the only way. Sandblasting only touches the surface. It's the same surface you would mechanically treat or chemically treat. So acid dipping is the only way, okay? Get that through your head. Whether or not you have enough car to do that with is a different story, but unless you're changing every single panel out and damn near just leaving the VIN, anything like your inner rockers, your inner frame structure, your upper roof inner frame structure, wherever you didn't touch that you can't see the surface on, assume that there's rust there. Okay? Rust usually works inside out. That's enough of the babbling. Back to business. Now, for aligning the quarter, you're gonna have to do some finagling. This is an aftermarket piece on an OEM piece. It is not going to fit up perfectly. Just get it out your head. Especially if you have an aftermarket wheel housing from one company, a quarter panel from another company, and an OEM car to contend with, which may or may not have been made to the perfect specs. This is 1968. You're going to have to cut up some stuff. For me, just to get this here smooth, I had to chop this. Bend it back, pry it back, beat on this. There's some stuff I had to do. So I did that. It then popped in everywhere else. Nowhere else I really had to touch. On the passenger side, that corner over there, I needed to do a relief cut and allow it to go. Not a relief cut. I had to do a cut because it wasn't going over the deck lid filler panel. That was one, and I did have to do a relief cut somewhere else, open it up, bang it in, and then fill in the hole. So it was about, let's say, 2-3 millimeters off from going on. Gotta remember, this is a big piece of structure, just so you can take a look at it. There's a big piece of structure that is one piece, and here, and over here has to all line up, okay? So if you expect parts to fit like Lego blocks, get out the restoration business. So once you have your quarter panel all lined up, all dialed in, then you want to screw everything in, as I said before. And once you have it screwed in, I just went for this kind of distance. So you can do that, you can do more, you can do less, it's up to you. You just want the screws help pull in the panel as tight as possible so that you don't have much gaps. Over here, I've already started welding, okay? Now, over here is kind of tricky. I made I don't want to say a mistake, but what I did on the other side was I screwed in these type of self-tapping bolts. I screwed them in, and what ended up happening was you get a puncture on the other side. That other side is not the easiest to weld, okay? Or even grind off. It's not that bad to weld because there's a hole there, but on the other side of this, it's not the easiest to grind off. To get a cutting wheel and a grinding wheel is very difficult. So if you can weld as much over here as possible, then that's good. Now, don't kill me. I did not use this clamp to weld. That's stupid. This is plastic, okay? What I did was I pushed this side down because this was pried up. Pushed this side down, used my body hammer, and I like this side. This is a flat hammer, okay? Now what I did was tap, 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 tap until the metal dried back down, okay? Once you do that, then you can utilize your big clamp with a long throat, or a deep throat, I should say, and clamp down in pieces. Now, once you know that everything's where it needs to be, start on one corner, press it down, and weld, and you could do tack welds if you want, but you can't do a bead. Don't do a bead here. Now, what I'm also going to do is, because you can see these gaps, I'm going to weld. Now, another thing, I've made a video about this before, but I'm just going through the whole process. My welder is grounded not on this panel, on the frame, on the inner frame structure, so that the weld is penetrating to that point and will melt into the surrounding metal. That will give you the deepest weld, as well as the heat should bond everything, okay? Very important. If you clamp it to the roof, the only thing that's going to happen, unless your heat setting is real good, is that the weld is going to make initial contact with this metal. You don't want that. You want the metal on the substrate to form the puddle, and the puddle into the surrounding metal, okay? Then, yeah, so that's what I do with that. Otherwise, I'm going to, clean up some of these holes, weld them in. Then afterwards, this hole here, this was just a mistake. It's just a mistake. That's nothing else to say about it. I'm going to fill up this hole. I know ways to fill this up. If you want to know the ways I know to fill it up, let me know. But essentially, I'm just going to fill up this hole. And then I'm going to do some light tacks just to kind of seal in the deal all around. So anywhere there's like a little impression and it's not smooth, I'll just fill those in. And then kind of do like a little bead going every so often. And essentially just tack them in. And that should do it for there. Otherwise, you just weld it in and you call it a day. That's all it really is to it. After I do this, I'm going to use my lead-free solder. Well, once I clean up this frickin' rust, I'm going to use my lead-free solder, fill this all in. Reason being is that this is a high area for flexing, okay? Your roof is a very important part of the overall structure of your car. This is why, especially, well, only or particularly on unibody designs. Like my truck, it's got a frame. This, the body is the frame. So, if you don't believe me, if you look at a convertible, it's reinforced by the rockers because the rigidity is gone of the roof. So, what does that mean to you? That means that if this is in high area of support for the car's strength, that means that it experiences a lot of twisting, So twisting, buckling, all those things is what the roof experiences, which means that here has to be semi-flexible. And if you use regular Bondo, it is going to crack. This is why lead was used from the factory. The alternative is to use aluminum filler, which it'll be less susceptible to cracking. But the factory used lead, I'm going to use lead. So that's just that. You do what makes you feel good. All right, now another piece to take note of, and that'll be the last thing in this long video. If you notice, new aftermarket quarter and this quarter, it's pretty smooth along this surface and that surface. But here has these pins, or I don't know what they're called. I'm going to call them pins. And these pins help support the brackets that help install your windshield. But don't go crazy. You can get some button screws, some button head screws. Put them every so often. If you measure the distance of your stock quarter, or you want to Google it, you can. But essentially you want to do that. On the deck lid filler panel, they're already installed for you. Can't see too well, focus. See? They're there already. So that's good. That's real good. So the only thing you got to worry about is your quarter panel. Those two ends. Other than that, it's a straightforward install. Do I got anything else? Look at the car. The car is pretty level. The floor is not level, but the car is level. Okay? It's very important for installing a quarter panel. You don't want to impose stress when you drop the car down. So do not jack it up from one side and then start changing the quarter. Have the car level. That will help you, because you will put extra stress into the welds, which might crack them, okay, or shear them, as a technical term is called. So make sure the car is completely off the ground, preferably leveled, and you'll be good to go. I leveled my car prior because I installed my floor. All right, so that's my 2 cents, a bit more than 2 cents, but that's my tidbit. Am I missing anything? Yeah. Don't fret about not having enough clamps between the bolts, which will act as clamps. What you can do is take your clamp, or I have my other style clamps. Like, these are welding clamps. I also have the copper-backed welding clamp. Okay? So, take your clamp your piece down, weld, move your clamp to the next hole, weld. So, I would say in general, for a quarter panel, you're probably going to need about, I'd say, 4 or 5 clamps, which is pretty cheap at Harbor Freight. All right, till next time.